Let's go live now to senior writer and columnist with The Australian, Troy Bramston. Troy, let's look at the Turnbull memoir. You've interviewed the former Prime Minister and you've read the book. What did you make of it?
Well, Kieran, I thought this was an utterly compelling and absorbing book, one that challenges much of our established history, I guess, of politics over the last 10 or so years. But it is also an incendiary book. I mean, this is full of explosive revelations, the disclosure of private messages, cabinet discussions, secret diary notes that Malcolm Turnbull kept. It is an unbelievable book to be published in Australian politics, so nothing like it really compares. And I had an opportunity to interview Malcolm Turnbull last night. Let's just say it was quite a spirited and animated phone call. And I've written up some of that interview for The Australian, which is published online this afternoon. There'll be more of it tomorrow. But look, he's out there saying that he is writing for history. He has no regrets, expresses no remorse for revealing private conversations. And he says he owes it to history and owes it to his own government to tell the true story as he saw it.
Yeah, I've just been reading your story online at The Australian this afternoon, and basically the point that he says he's given a balanced account of Scott Morrison and his relationship with him, whom he still regards as a friend, Troy.
That's right. He does regard him as a friend, and he made the point to me quite directly that he wouldn't be Prime Minister without Malcolm Turnbull's support. So what he's saying there is that if he didn't put on that strategic, tactical series of manoeuvres over several days as his prime ministership was collapsing, he wouldn't have been able to stop Peter Dutton, and that paved the way for Scott Morrison to be Prime Minister. So he's kind of taking credit for that to a degree. But there's no doubt in the book, Kieran, that he accuses Scott Morrison of undermining Tony Abbott and Joe Hockey. He says that Scott Morrison was essentially an architect of the first leadership spill against Tony Abbott in early 2015. And he says he was playing a double game right to the end, hiding his ambitions to be Prime Minister and planning for that, whilst he was also offering support to Malcolm Turnbull. So, look, I mean, no one could read this book and come away with thinking there is a ringing endorsement of Scott Morrison as a politician, as a person, his character. It is quite damaging and quite damning. Although, as you say, Malcolm Turnbull emphasises that they do remain friends, and there is a degree of praise for him in the book overall.
And as you say, he does go into some of the relationships, not just between himself and others, but between current ministers and the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and that was one of the things I talked to Mr Turnbull about last night, Kieran, which was about, I don't have any problem with former Prime Ministers writing political books. I think they should do that. As a historian, I welcome that. And if they've got original documents, if they've kept diaries, messages, these things are good for history. The question, though, is the timing. I mean, the people he's writing about are now running the government. I mean, the person he has in his sights in a big way in this book is now the Prime Minister, and others like Mathias, Corman and Peter Dutton. So the question is not whether he should do this. The question is when. And that is why this book is so scandalously compelling, outrageous, full of salacious details that I encourage people to buy the book, because I was frankly astonished page after page to read some of the things that he's writing about his former colleagues who are now grappling with the most challenging policy decisions since the Second World War.
It's interesting, he says, that he talks about the Liberal Party being held by a right-wing rump, but concedes at the same time, when he spoke to you, that there are moderates like Stephen Marshall, Premier of South Australia, Gladys Berejiklian, Premier of New South Wales, moderates and leaders.
Yeah, this is something that I explored with him. Look, he does write in the book that he hoped to steer the Liberal Party to the centre. He says that is where the Liberal Party's true foundations are in terms of Australian liberalism. But he concedes he failed on that. And not only did he fail, he thinks that the party is now captive to a right-wing rump supported by sections of the media, including The Australian, he accuses, and also Sky News. And he says that these small groups and particular individuals are holding the whole Liberal Party hostage. He says they're using terrorism tactics. It is pretty outrageous and extraordinary stuff. And, you know, there's been reports today that he possibly could be facing expulsion from the Liberal Party for this kind of treachery that other people are accusing him of. And he just roared with laughter, Kieran, when I put that to him. He couldn't care less. He thinks the Liberal Party is not the party of Malcolm Turnbull, and it's no longer the party of John Howard or Robert Menzies either. So he is defiant, unapologetic, and stands by every word and every page in that massive book.
And he would have won the last election if he remained Prime Minister, according to his analysis?
Yeah, look, even though he lost 38 news polls in a row, he pointed out to me that Scott Morrison had lost every news poll, but obviously won the election. He also reveals internal Liberal Party polling that shows that the coalition was ahead at the time he was dumped as Prime Minister. So he's making this very strong claim, not only that he would have won, but quite damagingly for his own party, Kieran, he says that the coalition did not deserve to win the last election because of the leadership coup. Now, it's one thing to say that you think you would have won the election. It's quite another thing altogether to say that the party didn't deserve to win. He's essentially saying that Labor deserved to win the election, which are extraordinary comments. And look, the book only has been in stores today, Kieran. I read it last week. I think when this book fully seeps in, and Liberals and Liberal Party staff members and supporters and party members understand the extent of his criticism of his own party, they are going to be truly astonished about what they read.
And Troy, before you go, and I do look forward to reading your report tomorrow, and I've already read this afternoon your analysis, and Malcolm Turnbull, we will have him at the National Press Club tomorrow at 1 p.m. So that'll be interesting as well to see how that goes in a virtual sense. It won't be held in person, but once again, I look forward to hearing what he's got to say. Troy, before you go, the squashing, we've been saying flattening of the curve, but really it's the squashing of the curve right now, isn't it? The success has been so great from our policymakers, both at the federal and state level.
Yeah, look, I think it's fair to say, Kieran, in the long sweep of history, when we look back on this time, as you and I have talked about in recent weeks, the government didn't get everything right at the start. I mean, there weren't those border control checks, and we talked about when I was coming back from London a month or so ago, there wasn't pretty strong border checks there. There were some questions about how quickly we were responding to the public health aspects. But this has been an Australian success story. You have to look at it now, compare to what's happening overseas in Europe, in the United States, and we've done the right thing here, and it's been a unified national effort, citizens and government working together to flatten this curve, and it is a remarkable story. The big question is can we keep it up? And there have been some reports overseas of countries that did go into lockdown early, such as Japan and South Korea, having renewed outbreaks of the virus once they start to relax those restrictions. So I think government is right to be cautious about how soon we start to get back to normal. But you're right, this has been a great public policy success story overall.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That caution well placed given what we've seen internationally. Troy Bramston, thanks so much. As always, talk to you.